Japan, 1877. The age of the samurai was coming to an end. Across the misty hills of southern Japan, a small force of warriors prepared for what would likely be their final battle. Their armor was damaged. Their numbers were hopelessly small. And waiting for them was a modern army armed with rifles, artillery, and overwhelming manpower. Yet none of these men considered surrender. They belonged to a warrior class that had followed a code where honor mattered more than life itself. They were the samurai.
Today, the samurai are remembered as masters of the sword. Movies portray them as fearless warriors, standing beneath falling cherry blossoms. Legends describe them as noble protectors who lived and died for honor. But history tells a far more fascinating story. Behind the polished armor and famous katanas stood a military elite that shaped Japan for nearly 1,000 years. Their influence reached battlefields, royal courts, and even the foundations of Japanese culture itself.
Welcome to Storyverse. Here we uncover the hidden truths, forgotten legends, and remarkable stories that shaped our world. If you enjoy learning history through cinematic storytelling, subscribe and join us on the journey. Tonight, we travel deep into feudal Japan to uncover the true story of the samurai. Who were these legendary warriors? How did they rise to power? And why did one of history's most disciplined warrior classes eventually disappear? To understand the samurai, we must travel back more than 1,000 years. During the early Heian period, Japan was ruled by an emperor in the capital city of Kyoto. On paper, the imperial government controlled the nation. In reality, distant provinces often existed beyond its reach. Powerful landowners struggled to protect their estates from bandits, rival clans, and local conflicts. In this uncertain world, skilled fighters became increasingly valuable, laying the foundation for a new warrior class. At first, these warriors were not the legendary figures we imagine today. They were practical men, hired to defend land, collect taxes, and maintain order in regions where government authority was weak. Their success depended on discipline, skill, and loyalty. Over time, powerful families began building private armies, and these fighters became more organized. What started as a solution to local security problems slowly evolved into one of the most influential military classes in history. As generations passed, the warrior families grew stronger. Their military abilities allowed them to gain wealth, land, and political influence. Eventually, some clans became so powerful that they rivaled the authority of the emperor himself. Battles between rival families became increasingly common. Every victory brought greater power, while every defeat could destroy an entire bloodline. Japan was changing, and the samurai were becoming far more than simple guards and soldiers. By the late 12th century, Japan entered one of the most important struggles in its history. Two powerful clans, the Taira and the Minamoto, fought for control of the nation. Their conflict became known as the Genpei War. Across battlefields, rivers, and coastal waters, samurai warriors fought fierce battles that would determine the future of Japan. The outcome would not only decide who ruled the country, it would change the balance of power for centuries. When the war finally ended, the victorious Minamoto clan established a new form of government, known as the shogunate. Although the emperor remained an important symbol, real power increasingly belonged to military leaders. At the center of this system stood the samurai. For the first time, warriors became the ruling class of Japan. Their values, traditions, and methods of warfare began shaping the nation in ways that would influence generations yet to come. But being a samurai required more than skill with a weapon. Over time, a powerful philosophy developed around their role in society. This philosophy would later become known as Bushido, often translated as the way of the warrior. It emphasized loyalty, courage, discipline, self-control, and personal honor. A true samurai was expected to remain calm in the face of danger, faithful to his lord, and willing to sacrifice everything for duty.
For a samurai, training began at an early age. Young boys learned swordsmanship, horseback riding, archery, and military tactics. They practiced for countless hours, repeating the same movements until they became second nature. Failure was not treated lightly. Discipline shaped every aspect of their lives. Their goal was not simply to become strong fighters. They sought mastery over both body and mind, believing that true strength came from complete self-control. As the samurai grew in power, their reputation became tied to a strict code of conduct. Honor was not simply a personal virtue, it was the foundation of their identity. A samurai's actions reflected not only upon himself, but also upon his family, his clan, and his lord. Courage, honesty, loyalty, and discipline were expected at all times. To lose honor could be worse than death itself. This belief would shape some of the most remarkable and controversial traditions in Japanese history. One of the most famous aspects of samurai culture was Bushido. Although its exact form evolved over centuries, its principles remained powerful. A samurai was expected to remain calm during fear, humble during success, and loyal even in impossible situations. The ideal warrior controlled his emotions and accepted death as a natural possibility. This mindset allowed samurai to face extraordinary dangers, but it also demanded sacrifices that few people today could imagine making. Among all samurai weapons, none became more legendary than the katana. Its curved blade, elegant design, and deadly efficiency transformed it into a symbol recognized around the world. Yet the katana was far more than a weapon. Many samurai considered it an extension of their spirit. Master swordsmiths spent weeks or even months crafting a single blade. Every detail mattered. To carry a katana was to carry a symbol of duty, honor, and responsibility. Contrary to popular belief, samurai did not rely solely on swords. In many battles, bows, spears, and mounted archery played a much greater role. Skilled horsemen could strike enemies from a distance long before swords were ever drawn. Military strategy, discipline, and coordination often mattered more than individual combat. The romantic image of endless sword duels tells only part of the story. Real warfare demanded versatility, planning, and constant adaptation. For centuries, warfare remained a defining part of samurai life. Rival clans fought over territory, resources, and political influence. Victories brought wealth and prestige. Defeats could erase generations of power. Across mountains, forests, and valleys, armies marched under colorful banners representing powerful families. Every battle offered opportunities for glory, but each conflict also carried enormous risks. In feudal Japan, survival often depended on strength, loyalty, and strategic thinking. Then came one of the greatest threats Japan had ever faced. In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire had conquered vast territories across Asia. Its armies appeared unstoppable. After subduing neighboring regions, the Mongols turned their attention toward Japan. Suddenly, the samurai faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The fate of the islands would depend on whether these warriors could withstand one of history's most powerful military forces. When Mongol forces launched their invasions, the samurai responded with determination. The battles were fierce and often chaotic. Mongol tactics differed greatly from traditional Japanese warfare, forcing samurai commanders to adapt quickly. Despite overwhelming pressure, Japanese defenders resisted fiercely. Then, something unexpected happened. Powerful storms struck the invading fleets, destroying ships and forcing retreats. Later generations would call these storms kamikaze, or divine winds, believing they had saved Japan.
The victories against the Mongols strengthened the samurai's reputation throughout Japan. They were celebrated as defenders of the nation and guardians of its traditions. Yet, success brought new challenges. Maintaining armies required resources, and political tensions continued to grow. Powerful clans competed for influence, while regional leaders sought greater independence. Although the samurai appeared stronger than ever, hidden cracks were beginning to form beneath the surface of their world. One of the most misunderstood samurai traditions was seppuku, often called ritual suicide. To modern observers, the practice may seem shocking. Yet within samurai culture, it represented something very different. In situations involving dishonor, defeat, or failure, some warriors chose death rather than living with shame. It was considered an act of responsibility and courage. While not every samurai followed this path, the tradition became one of the most famous symbols of Bushido. As the centuries passed, Japan entered a period of increasing instability. Rival clans competed for power with growing intensity. Alliances shifted rapidly. Trust became fragile. Ambitious warlords dreamed of controlling the entire nation. The age of the samurai was about to enter its most violent chapter. Across Japan, armies gathered, castles expanded, and battle plans were drawn. A storm was approaching, one that would reshape the future of the country forever. By the 16th century, Japan had descended into chaos. Powerful warlords known as daimyo fought endless wars across the country. Castles rose on strategic hills. Armies marched through valleys and forests. Entire regions changed hands through violence and betrayal. This era became known as the Sengoku period, or the Age of Warring States. For the samurai, it was a time of opportunity and danger. Great warriors could rise to fame, but a single mistake could end a dynasty forever. Among the many warlords competing for power, one man stood apart from the rest. His name was Oda Nobunaga. Ruthless, ambitious, and brilliant, he challenged traditions that others considered untouchable. Many feared him. Others admired him. Nobunaga believed Japan could only achieve peace through unification. To accomplish this goal, he launched campaigns that would transform the nation. His rise marked the beginning of one of the most dramatic chapters in samurai history. Nobunaga's armies achieved victories that shocked his enemies. He embraced new technologies and military strategies, while many rivals remained tied to older methods. One of his most important decisions involved the use of firearms. Introduced to Japan by foreign traders, guns began changing the nature of warfare. Nobunaga recognized their potential immediately. By combining disciplined troops with modern weapons, he gained advantages that helped him dominate battlefield after battlefield. Despite his growing power, Nobunaga's journey ended unexpectedly. In 1582, one of his own generals betrayed him. Surrounded and outnumbered, the great warlord faced a choice familiar to many samurai. Rather than surrender, he chose death. His fall shocked Japan, yet the dream of unification did not die with him. Another extraordinary leader stepped forward to continue the mission. His name was Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and his rise seemed almost impossible.
Unlike many powerful leaders of his era, Hideyoshi was not born into a noble samurai family. He began life as the son of a peasant. Through intelligence, determination, and military skill, he climbed the ranks until he became one of the most powerful men in Japan. His story demonstrated that talent could sometimes overcome social barriers. Under his leadership, the process of unification continued, bringing Japan closer to stability after generations of warfare.
As peace gradually spread across the country, Japan entered a new phase of transformation. Massive castles dominated the landscape. Their towering walls and complex defenses reflected both military strength and political authority. Samurai served as soldiers, administrators, and protectors of regional domains. Their responsibilities expanded beyond warfare. They became part of a sophisticated social system that helped maintain order throughout the nation. Yet another powerful figure waited in the shadows. His name was Tokugawa Ieyasu. Patient, calculating, and remarkably disciplined, he understood that true victory often belonged to those willing to wait. After years of alliances, rivalries, and careful planning, Ieyasu emerged as the strongest leader in Japan. His triumph would establish a government that lasted for more than 2.5 centuries, creating one of the longest periods of stability in Japanese history. In 1600, the fate of Japan was decided at the Battle of Sekigahara. Tens of thousands of warriors gathered for a conflict that would shape the future of the nation. Banners filled the horizon. Armies prepared for battle. Samurai fought with extraordinary determination, knowing that the outcome would determine who ruled Japan. When the fighting ended, Tokugawa Ieyasu emerged victorious. A new era had begun. Under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan entered a long period of relative peace. Ironically, this stability created a challenge for the samurai. For generations, their identity had been built around warfare. Now, large-scale battles became rare. Many samurai transitioned into roles as administrators, scholars, teachers, and government officials. Their swords remained symbols of status, but daily life changed dramatically. The warrior class was slowly evolving. During this peaceful era, samurai culture flourished. Literature, philosophy, martial arts, and traditional arts received greater attention. Concepts such as discipline, self-improvement, and loyalty became deeply connected to Japanese identity. The image of the ideal samurai grew stronger than ever. Yet beneath the surface, powerful changes were beginning to emerge. Forces from beyond Japan's shores would eventually challenge the world the samurai had spent centuries building. For more than 2 centuries, Japan remained largely isolated from the outside world. While other nations expanded their influence across the globe, Japan preserved many of its traditions and social structures. The samurai continued serving as an elite class, maintaining order and protecting regional authorities. Yet, beyond the horizon, the world was changing rapidly. New technologies, powerful empires, and industrial innovation were reshaping history. Soon, those changes would arrive at Japan's shores. In 1853, American warships appeared in Japanese waters under the command of Commodore Matthew Perry. Their arrival shocked the nation. The ships carried advanced weapons and represented a world far different from the one Japan had known. Faced with growing international pressure, Japanese leaders realized isolation could no longer continue. The country began opening its doors to foreign trade and new ideas. For the samurai, this marked the beginning of an uncertain future. As Japan modernized, many leaders concluded that the nation needed a stronger centralized government and a modern military. Traditional systems that had existed for centuries came under increasing pressure. Railroads appeared, factories expanded, new forms of education spread throughout society.
The world that had once depended on armored warriors and feudal loyalties was slowly disappearing. Many samurai found themselves questioning their place in a rapidly changing nation. For generations, samurai had enjoyed privileges unavailable to ordinary citizens. They carried swords, served powerful lords, and occupied a respected position within society. But modernization demanded change. Reforms gradually reduced their special status. Some adapted successfully, becoming military officers, teachers, and government officials. Others struggled to accept the transformation. The values they had inherited from their ancestors suddenly seemed threatened by forces beyond their control. Tensions eventually erupted into open resistance. Among those most troubled by the changes was Saigo Takamori, a respected leader, often remembered as one of the last great samurai. Though he had once supported modernization, he became increasingly concerned about the direction Japan was taking. Many former samurai shared his frustrations. Their dissatisfaction would soon ignite a conflict that many viewed as a final stand for the old warrior tradition. In 1877, the Satsuma Rebellion began. Thousands of former samurai joined Saigo Takamori in opposition to the government. They fought with determination, courage, and deep loyalty to their ideals. Yet the world had changed. The government possessed modern rifles, artillery, and a national army trained according to contemporary military methods. The conflict became more than a rebellion. It symbolized a struggle between the past and the future. As the fighting continued, the outcome became increasingly clear. Despite their skill and bravery, the samurai could not overcome the advantages of modern warfare. Their numbers dwindled. Supplies ran low. One battle after another pushed them closer to defeat. Yet many refused to abandon their principles. They continued fighting even when victory seemed impossible. Their determination would become one of the most enduring images in Japanese history. The final battle took place near Kagoshima. Surrounded and heavily outnumbered, Saigo Takamori and his remaining followers prepared for the end. The age of the samurai was drawing its final breath. Some accounts describe extraordinary acts of courage during those final moments. Whatever the exact details, one fact remains clear. A warrior tradition that had shaped Japan for nearly 1,000 years was coming to an end. Yet the samurai never truly disappeared. Their influence survived in unexpected ways. Concepts such as discipline, loyalty, perseverance, and self-mastery continued shaping Japanese culture long after the last battles ended. Their stories inspired books, films, martial arts traditions, and historical research across the world. What began as a warrior class evolved into something larger, a symbol of dedication, sacrifice, and personal responsibility. Today, the samurai remain among history's most fascinating warriors. Some see them as heroes. Others view them as products of a harsh and complex age. The truth lies somewhere in between. They were human beings, shaped by loyalty, ambition, courage, and conflict. Yet their legacy continues to captivate millions around the world. Perhaps that is why their story still endures. Not because they were perfect, but because they devoted themselves to ideals greater than themselves. The age of the samurai ended, but the legend never died.